On today's show, more details and more money are uncovered in the Clippers scandal. How much more does the NBA need to see? Plus, is the league facing a potential disaster with the NBA draft? All of that and more. It's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to Locked On NBA. However you're tuning in on YouTube or on your podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, and today we are talking about the league's looming problem with the NBA draft and a Warriors star getting involved in the Jonathan Kuminga stalemate. And we're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts. And as always, I have two of the best with me from the Locked On Pacers podcast and my co-host on Locked On NBA Game Nights on Tuesday nights. It is Tony East, and from the Locked On Bulls podcast, he's also a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report. It's Haize. Haize, how are we feeling this morning?
So far, so good. Closer and closer to Friday. That's always good, right? And closer to media day for NBA teams. So we're getting there.
We are certainly getting there. Media day should be really interesting in Los Angeles for the Clippers because, as always, we have more developments on the Kawhi Leonard scandal, with Pablo Torre reporting this morning that Steve Ballmer put even more money into Aspiration than was initially reported. What's interesting about this, guys, is that Mark Cuban, who has been a loud supporter of Steve Ballmer throughout this whole process and has tried to poke holes in Torre's reporting here, in one social media post, he asked that if Ballmer was using Aspiration to funnel money to Kawhi, then why didn't he try to save the company from going bankrupt in the first place, which would have prevented this report from coming to light? Well, according to Torre's most recent episode, he at least tried to do exactly that. On this latest episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out, he reported that Ballmer and the Clippers invested $118 million into Aspiration over a course of 18 months from September 2021 to March 2023. Adam Silver recently said that the league has been operating from a standpoint of innocent until proven guilty. But my question to you guys, Haize, do the Clippers at some point need to do a better job of explaining what this is all about? Because there's a lot of people at this point presuming guilt.
Yeah, you remember yesterday when I said that Pablo Torre is holding on to some stuff, that he's going to wait till the NBA concludes their investigation to come out with more based off what they find. This kind of goes into that, but I do think the Clippers need to come out and address this. The Steve Ballmer's, comments that they'll be proven that there was nothing going on wrong and all that. There, I'm paraphrasing. It's all fine and dandy, but I think at this point there's been enough stacking where an official statement needs to come out. They need to get ahead of this because, the public perception on this is terrible. But I don't know if even a statement from the Clippers officially does anything to fix that.
It's been funny with their statements so far. Like, they're chasing a moving target. They try to hit the first one and say, oh, it's provably false. And then the next day they're like, okay, we're going to take that part out of it. And then we're going to say Ballmer and the Clippers had no idea, but like, we're not going to include it's like, they just can't get it. And he keeps reporting more and more. It's like, well, that statement doesn't seem right. Oh, this statement doesn't seem right. Oh, the NBA lied and said they'd never heard of Aspiration. Yes, they had. Adam Silver said it 7 days later that they had it. They keep missing the mark on what they need to address in general when it comes to what the public is concerned about, right? And that's what's been so fascinating to me. And then today, of course, yes, another new thing that people try to poke a hole in it, like Wes said, and say, or like you said, and say, oh, well, what about this? Just kidding. That also is not a plausible explanation for what happened here. And today even made me more confused because it sounds like a lot of this investment came, at least in some form, via carbon credits that happened before the arena was even open and built. It's so confusing. It's so interesting. And I don't know how the Clippers can explain it, which is why, on one hand, you would like them to put out a statement and try. On the other hand, kind of what's the point, right? They're just going to have to be fighting something else and putting out a different fire in a couple days. They should probably just go with the blanket like, we are aware our legal team is investigating kind of gobbledygook for a while, I would say.
Haize, we've heard from Adam Silver, I would say problematically, right? It seems like every time he says something, Pablo Torre in his reporting is ahead of it. We've heard from Steve Ballmer. I would also say problematically. He didn't really do much to quell any concerns that the Clippers were not involved in this. We have not heard from Kawhi. We have not heard from Uncle Dennis, who, no matter who's reporting on this, feels like there's always some sort of statement of we've reached out to Uncle Dennis and they have not responded to comment in time to publish it, whatever. We haven't heard from Kawhi. We haven't heard from his side. Do we need to at this point, Haize?
Man, as long as it's not Kawhi himself talking, because if Kawhi talks, it's probably going to make it a little bit worse, to be honest with you. Like putting out a public statement or whatever through whatever means you have, but like I don't see Kawhi Leonard holding a press conference where he's answering questions, and if he did, I think that would go horribly wrong. So a statement can't hurt anything at this point. I don't think anything can hurt it. So why not?
Are we forgetting he showed up at the U.S. Open and smiled and waved? He's fine, guys. No statement needed. Kawhi's great. Yeah, it's going to be like we already mentioned off the top, Haize, like you said, media days in 10 days, right? Like you can't, it'd be so obvious what's happening if they don't hand Kawhi Leonard the mic on media day, right? He is going to have to do something. I guess he could do what I just said and be like, hey, it's a legal matter. I'm not going to comment on it, but people are going to ask, or they should ask. And I think his explanation matters only in that I'm assuming he'll just say like, I had no idea, or like, I don't know what all my representatives are doing on my behalf all the time kind of stuff. Just try to distance himself from it. But it would be nice to know if he has heard of this company, if he knows anything about this, what he thinks of the no-show label that's been put on him now, because he in theory, he's the central figure, right? Like he has to sign off on a lot of this stuff. He is the guy on the LLC, right? So he has something he has to say, but I don't know exactly what it is because it obviously is potentially incriminating for him.
Yeah, it sounds like that probably would be the defense that Kawhi comes up with. And if that's the case, it would just be everybody sort of involved or even kind of on the periphery here, pointing fingers, being like, oh, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. Seems like nobody knew what was going on. It's just this $118 million.
There's just no way, though, right?
The best defense for Kawhi to say this is really just to come out and get ahead of it and say, listen, it was a no-show contract. Half my NBA contract has been me not showing up to games. So what's the difference here?
The part that Kawhi can't answer, that every report keeps making me go, huh? One is there's a certain point where it sounds like all of a sudden the only big investors putting any money into Aspiration anymore were the Clippers, right? Why? Why are you doing that still? Like, and in theory, you have to know what's going on with the company. They have to tell you certain things about their situation. And we learned last time that even after they told them that Dennis Wong still put money in, right? And we hear this about Ballmer and all this stuff. It's like, what made you do that? What either you got scammed so bad in a way that no one else did, by the way, at your later points of investment. Why? That is a question I want answered. And the other question I would want answered by somebody, Kawhi, Aspiration, Clippers, etc. What did Aspiration get out of this? Like, it doesn't. That's what I have just never understood. Are the Clippers being good worth that much money to them? No chance, right? No chance it's worth that much more money to them, even if they're the jersey sponsor and seat sponsor and all this stuff. So those big holes are why there's so I just can't, like, I can't even find like a credible answer to what could have been happening. And that's why every single report's like, yep, that stacks up with what logic says to me.
What if Kawhi right now just tweeted, love Aspiration. I love everything they stand for. I'm here to plant trees.
Never tweets.
And everything goes away. It's not a no-show contract, right? All this guy had to do one time over the last couple of years was just tweet, Instagram, one thing. And it could have been like, hey, it wasn't a no-show contract. He gave you one Instagram post. Y'all paid $50 million for it. That's on you. No wonder you're bankrupt. But you couldn't claim it was a bankrupt. What's wild to me, Haize, is just how there's such a loud nothingness coming from Kawhi in terms of the no-show part of this, in terms of the lack of a statement since then. He's showing up at tennis tournaments just being like, what's the problem, guys? What did I miss? I don't know if there's anything. Well, I'll ask you this, Haize, and we'll kind of close. We'll tie a loop on it with this. Is there anything that Kawhi, the Clippers, Steve Ballmer, anything that anybody could say at this point that would maybe have you go, you know what? Maybe they do have a point. Maybe this wasn't circumvention.
No, unless they're coming out with financial records as well. Like, no, there's nothing that they could just say with their words at this point that would change my mind on this.
Tony?
Yeah, they'd need to tell me how they got $28 million of value out of this, right? Or whatever, or even more potentially with the stock part of it that was reported by John Corrales in the Boston Sports Journal, right? Like how did they get that much value out of this agreement, right? That's the part that I don't understand at all. And look, your company dissolved within 2 years and you're in court now defending it. Like clearly you messed up some financial things. Why is this not another one of them?
Is the NBA staring down the barrel at a problem with the NBA draft? And do they need to step in? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA Daily. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. If you've been listening to the show for a long time, do us a favor, support the show by hitting that subscribe button on YouTube, Locked On NBA. According to this study by ESPN, 5 teams control a majority of the first-round draft picks over the next few years, which leads us to some interesting questions, fellas. Those 5 teams are the Thunder, the Nets, Jazz, Grizzlies, and Rockets. They have combined for 55. They have 55 first-round picks over the next few years. Great for those teams. Question is this good for the league if it's the same 5 teams making a majority of the picks, Tony?
It's fascinating to me. And 2 questions came when I read this. One is this good for the league that this happens, right? Think about the times that these giant draft pick trades have happened. The Celtics, they got a title out of it. The Thunder, they have a title out of it. Now it's 5 teams at the same time. Will they all be good? What is this trend? If they all end up being good or really good or pretty good, teams will want to do this. But to make it happen, in most cases, outside of OKC, basically, you have to be bad for like a decent amount of time. Is it good for the league to have these giant pendulum swings? Is it good for the league to have a lot of hope consolidated into a certain number of teams that are doing one thing? Is it good for the draft that this is the reality? Like it leads to a lot of what does the league want the draft to be about kind of questions. I mean, not that they should change it in a dramatic way, but when it's this lopsided, 55 first-round picks, and in the article, they even run through the second rounders. It's absurd for some of these teams. How many second round picks they have, teams throwing those around like candy. What does this actually mean for what the league is trying to do or going is a very interesting question after the success we've seen from some of these strategies in the past.
It's interesting because of the mix of the place that these teams are in too. Like you look, of course, at the Thunder already being a contending team. Like they're trying to build a dynasty there, and there's no reason why they're not going to be able to continue to re-up with talent. But then you have the Brooklyn Nets and Utah Jazz there at number 2 and number 3, and we're still trying to figure out the direction and where these franchises exactly are. They're still looking for their stars and doing that. So like that's an interesting part. The Houston Rockets, Memphis Grizzlies. Rockets are right there. Grizzlies can be right back there again. Depending on how Ja is. So that's what I found the most interesting about this is the mix of teams that hold that. Now, is it good or bad for the NBA? I'll say this. It's both. I think it could be really good for the NBA in a couple of different ways. Some of these teams are in markets you definitely want to be good, and for parity around the league, you're hoping that some of these bad teams can get better. But then I also think if smart GMs around the league should be watching these teams because some of these teams have way too many picks. They're gonna have to sell off some or young talent still on rookie deals at some point in time, and that's another part in this. Like the Thunder eventually are gonna have to not re-sign somebody for these draft picks or trade these.
Yep.
What are going to be the teams that take advantage of that? Because that could be you can get a really, really good talent for cheaper, or you can get a high draft pick, and that's the part that I'm going to be interested in watching here.
And to clarify what I said at the beginning before Wes talks again, the Sixers also tried this with drastic failures, right?
Oh
so the
God.
Nets and
Here
Jazz
goes
do have to be wary of. Not failures, but they haven't won a lot. and they haven't made the conference finals. The Nets and Jazz are not like shoo-ins to be awesome, but it is a scary thing to see all this happen for 5 teams.
So it's these 5 teams that just own a ton of these picks. As you guys mentioned, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to take players with these picks, right? They can obviously turn around and trade these picks for different players, different assets, kick the can down the road, trade that pick for future picks, and then they add to their draft haul and stuff like that. In addition to that, though, guys, I think it's pretty inarguable that we kind of see the same half dozen teams picking in the lottery pretty much every year, right? It's Utah. It's been San Antonio for a very long time. Sacramento seems to always have a lottery pick. Atlanta. It's these teams that over and over and over again have been picking at the top of the draft, and we kind of just keep seeing these star players get funneled to sort of these same spots, or these star rookies rather, funneled to these same locations. And I wonder if the NBA, when you kind of already bake in the idea that bad teams in the NBA tend to stay bad for a long time, right? It's not necessarily like the NFL where you can kind of just one summer of free agency and a good draft, and next thing you know, you're like in the wild card. NBA teams tend to stay bad for a handful of years. You combine that baked in reality to the fact that these teams just own and control all of these picks. I do wonder if we're facing like a critical mass moment of the draft feels really stale. It doesn't make sense. All these players are wearing hats of teams that don't really draft them because we do this dumb thing where you get drafted by the team, but everybody knows you're not really drafted by that team and you're going to be playing somewhere else. In terms of the good for the league question, Haize, like, are we just in trouble of the draft becoming A, confusing, and B, because it's confusing, it's actually kind of boring and you're losing fan interest?
I don't know, because like the draft has always been confusing. And as far as like losing fan interest, I mean, if you look at the last 2 number 1 overall picks, these both came from teams that were almost playing teams, right? Or did make the play and just didn't make it out. So I think that flattening the odds, we're still seeing how that's going to work out over time since they flattened the draft lottery odds. So I think that's going to make it a thing, but it still comes down to developing talent and picking right. So like, even if you do have a lottery pick, it doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, look at, for example, like Reed Shepard from 2024. We don't even know if he's an NBA player yet. Right. So like, I don't know for me if it's boring, but I guess I could see maybe for the more casual NBA fan.
We'll see what the critical mass is, right? Like, are these drafts hilarious in 2027 when like 12 of the 30 teams just don't pick at all, right? Like, well, it just seems so weird that we hear the same teams, same names overlapping over and over. And what does that mean? Because the reason this is happening, and the reason to clarify the difference from what Wes said about football, is it's been proven without a doubt that like you have to have, and I guess you do in football at quarterback, right? But like you have to have the top level star in the NBA to be any sort of good or competitive. You can have a good team with that one, but you can't have a great team with that one. And so everybody has realized either drafting them is the best way to get them, or trading a ton of stuff is the best way to get them. And so they want to hoard things or get things in some way. And then in some ways it works out, but in other ways, if you're just hoarding and hoarding and hoarding, like you're not using them, the draft gets confusing and weird. So it just, I don't know yet what I think of this as a concerning league problem, but I do think we'll find out across the next 5 or 6 years, because it was just one team here or there most of the time for the last 10 or 15 years doing this. And now it's a bunch of teams being like, oh, it worked. Let's try it ourselves.
And it has a supply and demand principle effect on draft picks, right? Like first round picks, like these 5 teams can kind of monopolize and control the market. Haize, I have an idea. Let me know what you think. I know you haven't loved my ideas lately, but maybe I'll change your mind. Does the NBA need a reverse Stepien rule? In other words, it's a cap to how many first-round picks you can have over a 7-year period. Because right now, the Stepien rule, for the audience that might not be, you can't trade your picks in back-to-back years. So that's like the Stepien rule. So you always have to have a pick in your control in 1 out of every 2 years. Do they need a reverse Stepien rule, which basically says, okay, you can't own this many picks, whatever that number is, over a 7-year period?
So I'll say no, not because I hate your ideas, since you threw me under the bus and said I hated your ideas, but I think the Stepien rule is meant to protect GMs from themselves. A reverse Stepien rule would almost be hurting GMs who are smart.
Protecting GMs from other GMs, potentially.
I mean, but that's your fault. Be smarter. Don't let somebody take advantage of you if that's the case. In my mind.
What do you think, Tony?
I only want that for the lottery. If you win the lottery, you should not get a top 5 pick the next season. That's my only draft reform idea.
No top 5 picks for 2 years in a row, more than 2 years in a row, something like that.
And then like if you win the lottery, even if you're bad, you're not going to tank. It's just a win-win. I'm a very anti-tanking individual, but I do respect to kind of put a bow on this, the three of the teams we're talking about today are good, right? They don't have to tank. They just have a lot of picks. And I like that part of it.
Maybe we need like a stronger step-in rule where if you I don't know. The Warriors and Jonathan Kuminga remain at an impasse. One star is reaching out to the Warriors front office to find out what in the heck is going on. We'll talk about it next. Today's episode of Locked on NBA is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about that last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If that person didn't answer, did you walk or did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or your computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team could jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Openphone, OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have an existing number with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. Thanks again for making Locked On your first listen every day. The Locked On Podcast Network has a show for every team. So check out Locked On Clippers for their perspective on the Kawhi Leonard scandal. Also check out Locked On Thunder, Locked On Grizzlies, Locked On Rockets, Locked On Nets, because all they're going to be doing for the next 5 years is talking about draft picks and how many of them that they have. But let's go to Golden State, where the Warriors are in a contract standoff with Jonathan Kuminga, and now Jimmy Butler has stepped in. Kuminga, for those unaware, is still unsigned, 2 weeks away from the start of training camp. The Warriors most recently offered him a 3-year, $75 million, but the final year is a team option. Kuminga's side wants that to be a player option instead. And now, according to Dalton Johnson of NBC Sports Bay Area, Jimmy Butler has reached out to the Warriors front office, basically asking, what's the plan? Remember, Jimmy Butler was just in Miami dealing with his own extension drama. Golden State fixed that quickly by trading for him. Maybe now Jimmy Butler is expecting the same clarity with Jonathan Kuminga. Haize, what do you make of Jimmy Butler getting involved here?
I mean, anything that helps just get this done and resolved, to be 100% honest with you at this point. Like, let's just get this done, over with, and let's move on. The Warriors have so much that they have left in here, and that's probably also what Jimmy says in this. Like, we got to fill out this bench. We got to fill out this rotation, like, because I came here to try to win the title. So, I mean, it can't hurt, but I think the stubbornness from both sides, I don't know if this does anything for either one of those.
Allow me to wildly speculate, if you will. Very, very good thing to do on the internet these days. Malcolm Brogdon actually signing with the Knicks made me think a lot about the Warriors, because they were like loosely connected as a potential partnership this offseason. Oh, the Warriors might have interest in this guy as a free agent, and Michael Brogdon's good and he would help them. And then he signed with the Knicks like this week. And part of me wondered, because it's September and training camp's in like 10 days or less for these teams going overseas for their trips, like, you need your team. You need guys to sign, like be in your market and working on and playing together. If Malcolm Brogdon was like, screw this, I've had enough, I can't wait on the Warriors anymore. The Knicks are offering me something, even if it's non-guaranteed. I'm on a team, I'm in camp, I'm probably going to make the roster. And that made me be like, man, I wondered for a long time if there'd be a point for the Warriors where someone who isn't Kuminga got fed up. Horford, Payton, the other Curry, all these guys that have been hanging out. We're like, dude, come on. Like, I want to sign my contract with your team so I can do stuff. If I get hurt now, I don't get any money. So I wonder if the Brogdon thing, I don't know this, but I wonder if Brogdon was a tipping point for Jimmy or someone with the Warriors to be like, what are we doing? Like, let's go, let's figure this out. And lo and behold, we get reporting this week that they offered him a different deal, more years, more money. He still wouldn't take it. I think he probably should have taken that one. But regardless of my own thoughts on that, like, I understand all these Warriors players being like, we don't have a team. We have 9 players and camp is in 10 days. Like, let's go figure it out, because even if there's no specific plan that Kuminga will accept himself, they need to feel the roster. They have to play. They have to be ready to go. So they are running out of time for that. And potentially, if Brogdon was actually considering them, losing resources.
Yeah, I mean, if they lost out on Brogdon's a player that could definitely help them in what they need as far as depth off that bench, something has to give at some point in time.
Hayes, you've been on this. We've discussed this with Matt on the show where who's got the leverage? Who has more leverage in this situation, Golden State or Kuminga? And you've been very good on Kuminga does have leverage here because of all the things that Tony was just talking about. They need to fill out the roster, and they're kind of beholden to Kuminga's timeline. What strikes me as so interesting in this, Jimmy Butler knows a thing or two about getting what you want and finding ways to create leverage in a situation where maybe it doesn't look like he has a ton of that. If Kuminga wants to force Golden State's hand, he would be learning from the best if he were to kind of take under Jimmy Butler's wing here. If you're the Warriors front office, the fact that this is Jimmy Butler, given his history, does that make you a little nervous here?
It'd be different if Jonathan Kuminga had a chance to go 1-on-4 like Jimmy Butler did with the what was it, the 76ers before he got his way out of there when he took the practice team against everyone. So like you don't have that right now because the season isn't going on. But I mean, yeah, be worried about it a little bit because like Jimmy's the biggest prima donna about when he's ready to get out of a place, he's gonna make sure he gets out of it.
And it seems like, I don't know if it's necessarily an exit, but if Kuminga was getting offered the stuff that it sounds like he wants from these Suns and Kings like deals that might or might not make sense for the Warriors, which is starting or like being on a team where he would like have a more featured role. If the Warriors just said he would have that, would he actually believe them or be interested in that? Probably not, right? And that's why the Jimmy negotiation part's interesting because what he wants probably can't happen with Golden State. And that's why I feel like this reasonable contract offer, the newest one, even though I get why he would hate a team option, like he's not interested because he's still going to be not really prioritized and probably just be trade bait. And like, it's not that exciting if you're Kuminga, who like, even if he doesn't fit on Golden State, he is good. He's clearly a good player, right? And he should want a chance to prove that and get paid at some point in his career. So negotiating is tricky for him. Like, I think he could want to not be on the Warriors anymore, which is why that story in ESPN this week that was like, hey, do you want to be here? Well, do you want me here? As his response is perfect because that's what his career should be all about at this point. And so I agree that normally I would disagree with you and say the team has the leverage because when you're a restricted free agent, you're just kind of screwed. But in this case, when he's holding up all these other dudes, he does have a lot of power to really control what they do. And they have like a real hard cap of, what they can offer him in year one to keep all the other players they want to keep. So good for him on going for what he wants and making this happen and making it uncomfortable. But someone is going to hammer down at some point and make something happen. And I'm going to be very curious who it is.
These conversations have made me think of two conspiracy theories, Hayes. Now I'm going to give you a choice. So you can't just disagree with both things here. First conspiracy theory. The Clippers are leaking all of this Kawhi stuff so that they can get off of his contract, hoping that the Kawhi thing is voided and they can avoid the Clippers thing. That's my first conspiracy theory. Being very clear here. It is a conspiracy theory. I'm not reporting anything. I don't even believe this. Second conspiracy theory. Jonathan Kuminga is in cahoots with Al Horford and all these guys saying, hey, don't sign yet. Wait it out so that I can create leverage here. Which conspiracy theory is more believable to you?
Does Kuminga share an agent with any of these guys?
That's a great question.
That could actually not be a conspiracy theory at all. That could be a well-educated
Aaron
guess.
Turner is a powerful agent. You might be.
I would believe that probably because we know agents that have leverage. They do crazy stuff like that. So I believe the Kuminga thing more.
I believe that one way more. I understand why the Clippers would in theory maybe not want Kawhi's contract anymore to reset an era, but not this year. After this year, when they could be done with Harden too, and really which times maybe so. I think they would like a slow bleed, maybe like the day after the All-Star break happens in their new arena is the perfect day for the Clippers to finally be rid of this current timeline. So I will agree with your second Warriors-based one as you research Aaron Turner clients on the internet.
That's literally what I'm doing, and none of the guys on the related to the Warriors here are on that client list. So that pokes a hole in that argument, and that is how it's done. That'll do it for us today. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks to NBA. Here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.